Welcome back, future millionaires, to the Get Rich Slow podcast. I'm Adrian Schermer with my co-host, Rob Delavan. And today,
Good morning.
Good morning, Rob. Today, we're going to be diving into a bit of post-contract real estate talk. So, we've talked a lot about getting qualified and what it takes to get into a home loan, but this is kind of more talking shop on the back end and what really happens after the offer is accepted.
Yes, this is a fun topic. We've as we game out our episodes, the concept that we're working with is, okay, what are we working on today or this week, or how do we put, and in that process, how do we kind of pull back the curtain of what's happening in our industries, and then obviously all of our guests and that sort of thing who have all of this incredible expertise in their lanes, trying to do the same thing. So.
Absolutely.
In this, basically what we're trying to do is show you what the second step of a contract is for a real estate purchase. The first one is, of course, getting into contract, the negotiations, all of those details. Separate episode. This one is, okay, now we're in contract and we generally have an inspection period. And the inspection period is going to be between 5 and 10 business days, typically. Although I have seen on some super hot properties in the Portland metro area in the last few months where not healthy for the market, but we're actually seeing some waivers of inspections. Or they'll say, we're not going to ask for any repairs, but they'll do an inspection anyways, just for their information, which is actually kind of a BS way of saying, oh, I'm not going to ask for anything unless I find something. So anyway, that's a strategy.
And now you're about to explain why that people want an inspection waiver.
Right. And really, they're just trying to compete. At that point, they're basically desperate. Having an inspection within the contract is a healthy thing for a healthy real estate market. And in 2006 and 2007, when we were overheated and the bubble burst, inspections were routinely waived, and that was not a sustainable thing. And obviously, the market from between 2008 and 2011 bore that out. A lot of people lost a lot of money because they were buying stuff that was junk, and they couldn't afford to fix it, and so on. So not today's topic. Today's topic is, okay, we're in the inspection period. We're working through the process, and the process is you get an inspection and then you list out itemized repairs and then figure out how much those repairs cost. And this is part of that concept of, we actually get bids for everything. I have a gal that works within our office. She's also an interior designer. Her name's Jen. She actually goes through and gets bids for all of the things we ask for. And that way we're not just throwing crap out there and saying, hey, this pipe repair is going to cost, $2,500. We're saying it's going to cost exactly X.
And we've got a contractor ready to do it if you're
exactly, and they will fix it for X. So that way, we're not basically blowing smoke up somebody's ass saying, whatever it is. So in this case, we were in a contract for a small condo, southwest side of Portland, and very low sales price. We're talking like $145,000. We very rarely do this.
And this is where we see more pushback on these sort of things. If, big picture.
Exactly. And it's actually funny you say that. And by the way, this is Adrian doesn't know this, but it's actually a joint client, him and I. He's doing the loan, but as the lender, he doesn't see any of this stuff because lenders don't want to see all of the problems with a property. Frankly, every property has problems. So this little condo purchase, and to back up a little bit more, we prefer to have these conversations actually over the phone, where we can talk and work on figuring out a collaborative solution with the other side. And then if they're bought into it, they're going to go to their client and say, hey, this is reasonable. Well, rarely are we able to actually do this. Check out one of our other episodes of hiring the best people. What's happening is we're professional negotiators by trade. That's what a real estate broker is. That's where we actually make the money for our client. That's where we justify our fees that would be crazy otherwise if we weren't bringing value in multiples above that.
Yeah.
And this is that process. And this broker on the other side is a professional negotiator for his client, although he actually doesn't, at least I don't think he knows it, because he's not approaching it that way. So where we're
We call
at
them order
is,
takers, right?
exactly.
Unapologetically. There are
Right.
real estate agents who are order takers. And when you're doing your first or second transaction, you're probably an order taker. What's
Right.
that, Mr. or Mrs. Client? You want this? Great. That's exactly what we'll do then.
Right.
And then you gain the knowledge, and then you gain the skills. And then,
Right.
unfortunately, it's hard to distinguish that out in the open marketplace to tell who's a good, shrewd negotiator. You can't have a demo negotiation with your real estate agent, but that's why you've got to
Right.
rely on, a bit more info about the person that you're working with.
Right. And hire the best people. But
Yeah.
again, you won't know. I mean, you're nailing it exactly here, Adrian.
These are the kind of questions you can ask. Hey, are we going to get some bids?
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, that's
well, and I
idea.
always tell people to ask my competition is, what is it that you actually do that you get paid for that brings the most value? And the answer is, I'm a professional negotiator. But I'm going to get off that soapbox here, and I'm going to tell you guys.
Hey, the money's in the margins. I mean,
exactly.
Every bit counts.
But a margin, 5-10% of a purchase price at 145,000, not that big of a deal, right? Versus 5-10% of $1 million. Okay, you're starting to get into a big deal. But still, there's value there, and these are real dollars. So I'm just going to read through with some commentary, and I'm sure, Adrian, you'll have some points here, of just a quick back and forth via email, because we couldn't get a hold of the guy because he wouldn't answer his phone. And I'll try to keep my expletives to a minimum because he answer his phone.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, credit where credit's due. This is Rachel, who is one of my lead agents.
Yeah.
And she is the lead buyer's agent on this transaction. Also happens to be my little sister. So she says, she sent over a repair addendum requesting a number of items totaling just under $12,000. It was $11,978 for a $145,000 condo purchase. And this is us representing the buyers, and we're asking for those repairs to be done at that price point.
Yeah.
So
would you say, is that typical ballparking?
Well, in this particular complex, it is typical because it's pretty run down. There's a lot of deferred.
Depends on the owner, right? Yeah,
but it depends on the
right
property.
there, and that might be something our audience has heard before. Deferred maintenance. This is a really, really common thing that we catch up on. Basically, it's just this isn't like a car that gets inspected every year. This is a home that someone has to live in, and sometimes little pieces of damage, they add up, or something that can be pretty big. A furnace, for example, is a great one. It's still warming the house up, but maybe it's not safe, or it's not, up to code. Pulling out old fireplaces. I mean, I could go on and on, but 10,000 in a, that's what are we at that point?
It's
7-8% of this house's value.
Yeah. I mean, it's big. And most of it was plumbing. It seemed like every single pipe underneath a sink or underneath a house or the condo was leaking. I mean, it was a few $1,000s worth of
water is super, super scary. Water will just eat a house up.
Right. And then there was some HVAC issues. There was roof issues. There was mold in the attic. There was mold in the crawl space. I mean, all these things. Who goes in their attic? Who goes in their crawl space until they sell the home? And I mean, smart homeowners do, but frankly, even most people, even myself, I don't do as much maintenance as I should on my properties. Now we still have things scheduled periodically, but almost no one does that. So anyway, so jumping into this email is we sent over this repair request for $11,978. And the response was, I'm chatting with my sellers and see if I can get you a response, but I highly doubt that they are going to go for all the requested repairs. So I'm going to stop there. When he refers to they, that's his client. He's responded and already said, without even talking to them, that he highly doubts they're going to go for these requested repairs. So what he's doing is he's trying to reframe and set up an expectation that, oh, well, this isn't going to happen. You're going to get much less than this, basically $12,000. Then he continues, I'm sure your buyer understands that he is buying a condo for 145,000 and he is requesting this 12,000.
Yeah.
Yes, a portion of that is additional, but this is nearly 10% of purchase price. This is not a new condo, as he knew when he walked to the unit. I'm not sure where the sellers are going to end on this. I'll be in touch. Okay. So he makes multiple accusation audits there.
Right.
And he's basically accusing, your seller knew, or I'm sorry, your buyer knew that this place had some
Right.
maintenance to do.
And this is that
And
as is concept, right? It's in the verb, it's in
exactly.
the boilerplate.
Right.
Offer as is, etc. We see it even in the average. I love this when I see it on there. It's like seller to make no repairs. It's
Right.
It's meaningless. This is a negotiation until the keys exchange hands.
Exactly. Well, and it's especially meaningless because there's as is, but it also says buyer has the opportunity to do inspections
Yep.
for X period of days.
Yep.
And what's the purpose of that is to find the unknowns, because the buyer actually put in a contract and competed to get into this contract to purchase this property, and it was competitive. And we were able to get into contract based on our back and forth and frankly, the highest price that was offered.
Yeah.
Well, they're saying, well, this isn't going to happen. And they should have known. That's basically what he said. Well, did my buyer crawl into the crawl space? Are they experts in mold mildew? Are they plumbers? Right. Are they electricians?
Or are you wasting everyone's time?
Exactly. There you go. So I'll quit.
I mean, a good agent should, Rob, you've listed them out. Everything that you listed was a health and safety issue. Your buyer isn't saying, well, I really wanted granite countertops. Will you pay for those on the way out?
Perfect
Absolutely
segue
not.
Into Rachel's response.
Nice.
Hi, Chris. This is the beauty of it, right?
I love this.
Rachel knows she's a professional negotiator. Hi, Chris. I can understand your seller's emotional response for sure. Keeping them grounded and managing their emotions is the hardest part of our job. And she says, comma, right? Exclamation point, question mark. Basically, hey, bud. And I probably shouldn't have said his name, but I won't say his last name. Hey, bud. Yeah, this is hard. And your job is to make sure that your sellers get the best possible deal.
Absolutely.
And emotions are a big deal. And basically everything you already said in your email response was an emotional response. Let's get to logic. Our buyer definitely knew that the condo needed cosmetic updating when we walked through, right, Adrian? Like countertops?
Yep.
Unfortunately, we did not see or know about the myriad of health and safety issues that are hidden from the eye and found during the inspection. Please assure your sellers that we are only asking for the deferred maintenance and dangerous items that cannot be ignored, and not a myriad of cosmetic issues that actually totaled a much larger dollar figure to repair than the bids we got for the items we need addressed. She also used the word need addressed.
Yes.
After she said,
these aren't actually negotiable terms.
Exactly. Cannot be ignored.
And they won't be for lending either,
maintenance.
For the record. I mean, an appraiser's not going to let any of that stuff slide either.
Generally speaking, although they will let more slide
unless they see it.
Because they're, not checking electrical outlets to make sure that they're, actually, polarized properly and not a shock hazard and all that. Appraisers don't do all of that, but
they'll flick light switches though, and they'll look for moisture buildup. Right. I've definitely seen appraisal contingencies for, hey, what's that weird spot on the ceiling? We need you to either show who you paid to repair it up top, or you need to get someone up there to, it's stuff like that. It really does come up.
Right. And you're right. It really does. And these are health and safety items. She continues, I know the price point of this sale is low. She's addressing his concern. And she put in quotes, sucks for you and I, right? With a smiley face, a laughing emoji. Because of course,
try to smooth it.
What he's basically saying, and she's acknowledging is, yeah, the commission isn't very much. He's basically saying that, well, I'm not going to get paid very much.
Not interested in putting the time in.
Exactly. But unfortunately, the licensed contractors don't care about that. And their cost to do these repairs are the same as they would at a much higher sale price point.
Yep.
I really hope you and I can collaborate and keep this together for our clients. I know there's a lot of time and hard work into coming up with solutions. Remember, addressing his low commission that he's complaining about. Coming up with solutions to get these things done and not have your sellers have to pay directly out of pocket on both our parts. Regardless, I totally understand and appreciate your time spent on this one. And, all my best, and Rachel, and all the things underneath.
All the wonderful things. Yep.
One of them being that she's a master certified negotiation expert, and it's right in her email signature, which is not an easy designation to get. It takes a lot of time and effort to get through that. The other agent is certainly not that. So all said and done, this concept of, she addressed all of the points that he said. They were all emotional. She's bringing him back to the logic of contractors don't care what your price point is to fix a leak. It's going to be $1,000 on 145.
Right. In $1 million home or in a
exactly.
$150,000 home. If you got a leaky kitchen sink, it's pretty much the same job. So
exactly. And and we're talking, some of the toilets were leaking. They were moving if you sat on them. It's
that can get so expensive, so fast and dangerous. It's almost a higher risk in a cheaper house because, it's like buying a cheap car, right? You get a fender bender and you total the thing. Houses actually can effectively get totaled at a certain point. There's a point where you could have enough structural damage where it's like, well, maybe we should just plow this thing over because it's not really worth trying to patch this up.
So it probably would be helpful for me to run through a number of the things just for the audience to hear this.
Yeah.
So the back door, sliding glass door didn't lock. $196. Big deal. It doesn't lock. We didn't know that. There was a couple of the windows that were cracked and broken. $525. Moisture levels in the floor around the washer and dryer. And to tear up and replace, I actually don't have a price point on that. Let's see here. A number of electrical items. That was, let's see here, cruising down to this one. I had it open, $1,100. That GFCI protection, replace 14 outlets that were all misfunctioning throughout.
Wow.
Just the electrical panel was improperly wired and wasn't labeled at all. White conductors were used as hot. So somebody would say, oh, well, this one's not hot because it's white, and they touch it and they get shocked. Things like that. The exhaust duct for the clothes dryer needs to be replaced. It was just venting hot, moist air in just next to the wall. $140. There was mold remediation.
Weirdly common issue. Attic. Ventilation issues is huge. What a dog pile that becomes, because it's just it's a problem that is self-exacerbating.
Exactly.
We've seen the black mold in attics where a tube fell down, and then all of a sudden, literally the entire attic is now filled with kitchen grease.
Exactly.
A fine mist of kitchen grease all over the walls. What a petri dish.
You made it sound appetizing. A fine mist. The shower pan was leaking. Basically, literally, when anybody was taking a shower, underneath the shower, it was leaking part of the water.
So just every drain.
Deck boards were rotten. You could put your foot through them. The guardrail on the deck, which had about 6 or 8 foot drop on the other side, was wobbly, and part of it was missing. There was water damage underneath almost every sink. Just all of these different items that just basically all the appliances weren't working. The washer and dryer weren't working properly. The dishwasher actually did run. The refrigerator was leaking. Just on and on and on. And, $1,500, $1,100, $500.
And I got to ask too, so that we have a frame of reference. Is this place priced way under market?
It was not. And it was competitive. And it didn't look great when you moved in, but it seemed livable and habitable until you start uncovering all these items. So I
Yeah.
mean, I guess stay tuned. Maybe we should do another episode in a few weeks to see if this either just falls apart or we were able to salvage it and get it done. But I just I want to convey to the audience the importance of a negotiation in this process. It
Yeah.
matters
Of a great
how you
inspection too.
negotiate.
I mean, look at all those things that could have lurked underneath if you
Oh,
had taken an inspection waiver that this person would have had to find out the
brutal,
hard way. And one of the big
brutal.
takeaways for me, Rob, on this too is, even if you're not at this period in a transaction, if you're thinking about buying a home,
Right.
understand that this is what's a good analogy? Maybe like buying a car from a dealership. My brother just got a car from a dealership. He
Sure.
came back. He told them they were paint chips. They fixed the paint chips. They replaced a key that they broke that wasn't disclosed up front.
Right.
It's not, even if someone's doing a for sale by owner, it's not like you can buy a piece of junk car from someone and just sign off on the title. It doesn't matter if it's even registerable. But there is a standard for housing, and a lot of it is health and safety. It's for good reason. But you've got to remember that effectively every house that's on the market, its value is on the assumed the presumption that it is up to code, that it is safe, that it is not a violation of any health or safety concerns, that there isn't mold, that there isn't a concern of going through the floor or the decking or whatever it might be. So there's a level, and if your house isn't at that, this is also on that agent for not setting expectations up front with their sellers. It doesn't matter that it's a cheap home. It has to be safe, and it has to be livable, and it has to work, and it has to not be a maintenance pit, because it isn't like a used car. This house is houses last forever as long as you keep them up.
It's supposed to appreciate in value. It's considered real property rather than personal property, which depreciates in value. And the idea is you got to have the inputs throughout the process to do that. In wrapping this up, the last piece you dropped that point there of this seller, just so everybody knows, disclosed none of this. Now, most sellers just basically say, well, I don't know, I'm not a professional, I just own the home. And that's how they get away with it. But unless otherwise disclosed, which is a tactic, if you say, hey, there is an issue in the attic, we're not going to take care of that, we think it's roughly going to be X amount of dollars. Let the market, and that's a total negotiating tactic, saying, I'm not going to deal with an old roof. You're going to have to deal with it, Mr. or Ms. Buyer. And so be it. But that's disclosed up front, and that's something that, can't be asked for on the back end necessarily, or at least in good faith. So there's disclosures, there's disclosure laws, but you can't rely on that. You have to have the inspections, and you have to have somebody who's willing to, at a certain point, if we can't negotiate through and get the vast majority of this taken care of, then we will recommend that our buyer walks, because instead of buying $145,000 place, he's actually buying $155,000 or $165,000 place. And at $155,000 to $165,000, he can get a different product that doesn't have all these issues. So you might as well go up in price without having to deal with all of that. So
definitely
just a little,
and this stuff is super important to your investment. I mean, we talked about this a little bit in a couple other episodes, but like you mentioned, it's not that much money at the core of things, right? $10,000. If we're talking about becoming millionaires on this podcast, this doesn't seem like that much money. It can make a huge difference, though, because you might be only putting 3 or 5% down. So these negotiations can also represent a theoretical doubling of what your initial stake is in the property. And especially if you're making a purchase and you have mortgage insurance, same thing. If there's improvements to the home, if the home is in exceptional condition when you take ownership of it, you're more likely to get to that 20% equity point where you can drop mortgage insurance faster than if there's a bunch of deferred maintenance that starts really sliding out from under the cracks. That becomes more apparent as the house gets older. Then you're spending money to not improve the home, but it's like if you bought a new car and the clutch went out immediately, or, they cleared the check engine light and they hoped it didn't come out on the test drive. And then you're halfway home and the thing's billowing smoke. You could go back, you could sue the dealership. The same thing here. You can't really do anything after the transaction effectively closes. That's why we got to get up in there, make sure that we check this out very, very effectively, use the right people, use a great inspector who's doing stuff like checking every outlet like that, you know, because not everyone does. And then you can have a more secure investment, but you can actually literally make money on that because you're not losing money when you got to go fix it 2 years later when it becomes a real problem.
Exactly. And you mentioned, and we do need to wrap up, but you mentioned using the inspector, right? And
Yeah.
we've talked in previous episodes about the best people. Well, my inspector happens to be CDO Inspections. Quick shout
Yep.
out.
Yep.
We can, Avery, when you produce this, you can put it in, put a link in the
Absolutely.
podcast or in the
I use
remarks down
them. I
below.
learned so much about,
Uh,
about home
but
ownership.
but he's he's an electrician, a licensed
Yeah.
electrician. So it's, you know, and he's not working on electrical on our homes, but he's bringing that body of knowledge. So the point is use the best people that
Yeah.
actually know what they're doing. We're intentionally going through this process, and if it means we walk away, so be it, but get to the point where we're actually creating value for our clients. Otherwise, you know, these $10,000 swings one direction or another,
Yeah.
those add up over 5, 10, 15 transactions over somebody's 40-year working life, investing life. And, you know, again, that goes back to, hey, those everyday millionaires,
Sure.
right? So
Sure.
anyway,
Last
love it.
episode, we
Thank you.
talked about, what was it, a $30,000 mistake, $40,000 mistake
Oh,
the seller
geez.
might not even know about.
It,
Yeah.
it
A
happens
handful of these mistakes.
all the time. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And you just don't want to be, you don't want to be on the wrong end of that.
Absolutely.
So awesome. Thank you for your time
Cool.
today, Adrian. Love
Yeah.
it.
Thank you very much. We'll see you guys next time on the Get Rich Slow podcast.
Take care.